Hello everyone and welcome to the Fintelligent Investor channel. I am CA Pratiksha Pai. In the previous part of this very video, we discussed about the reduction of custom duty on gold and silver and its effect, as well as the various modernized and industrial usages of gold and silver, which makes it a very good investment option. In this part, let us discuss what are the various ways in which you can invest in gold and silver as a point of view of an investment avenue. Without any further ado, let's dive in. Okay, now that we finished the technical part of it, let us now see how we can invest in various forms of gold and silver. So first let us go through silver, because there are only two ways you can invest in silver. One is of course the physical format, where you can buy coins, bars, or various other silver items which are on display, which is a physical purchase of silver. However, in physical purchase, again, there will be making, wastage, storage charges, because you have to purchase and keep it somewhere, right? So if you're using a locker, then maybe the locker rent or whatever it is. So this is the physical form. And then in the digital form, as far as silver is concerned, because as far as gold is concerned, there are a lot of avenues in the online form. But in silver, in online form, as of now, there is only silver ETFs. Okay, you can invest in silver ETFs, and in that way, there will be no storage costs. There will be no making wastage, etc. So that is one way of investing in silver. And as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, there are so many other demands for silver, even more than gold actually, so as to say, because of all these new emerging industries like green energy, and even in the medical sector, etc. So definitely it looks like a great investment. And even in the first half of 2024, the value of silver has shot up almost 50%. So that shows that in the coming days there could be a whole lot of fluctuations or increase in the prices of silver as the demand goes up. Coming to gold, the various types in which you can purchase gold are definitely physical gold, online or digital gold, sovereign gold bonds, gold ETFs, and gold mutual funds. Very quickly, let's look at each of these avenues and everything related to each of these avenues. So let's start with physical gold. Physical gold can be in the form of jewelry, ornaments, coins, and bars, and these can be purchased from any retail jewelers where you make your normal gold purchase. The investment limit, as far as it is concerned, there is no minimum or maximum investment limit. Whatever is the minimum purchase weight will depend on your jeweler and where your purchase happens. The cost of physical gold involves the gold price plus making charges plus wastage charges. The GST as normal is applicable at 3%. Now, physical gold can be purchased by paying in cash or card, or by exchanging your any old gold. And the physical gold involves a risk of theft. That is why an additional storage cost will be involved, because you might have to take a bank locker, you may have to pay its rent and whatever allied costs. So physical gold, as far as physical gold is concerned, there will be a risk of theft, and that is why a storage cost will be involved. There is no lock-in period. You can purchase today, sell tomorrow. We may have seen some gold that may have gone down through generations as well. So there is no particular lock-in period as such, and it is entirely an individual's preference. As far as the returns are concerned, you don't gain any returns for the period of holding this gold. If you're just purchasing and keeping it inside, or maybe wearing it or whatever, there is no returns as such. However, when you sell it, there will be a capital appreciation, of course. Then this physical gold, as far as the tradability is concerned, it is tradable with jewelers while purchasing new gold. As I mentioned that you can purchase any physical gold by exchanging your old gold. So that is the tradability of physical gold. Now, as far as taxability is concerned, when you sell this gold, you will attract short-term capital gain or long-term capital gain depending on the period of holding. Next, let us see digital gold, or what we normally call as online gold. So basically, digital gold is an online alternative to physical gold, and you can purchase it through mobile e-wallets or websites like, generally we know Paytm, GPay, PhonePe, or even websites like MMTC, PMP, or Safe Gold, Augment, etc. Now, there is, as far as the investment limit is concerned, there is absolutely no bar on minimum or maximum investment as far as digital gold is concerned. You can literally buy gold worth 1 rupee when it is digital gold. And the purchase cost of digital gold includes the cost of gold, and the spread will be there around 6% and a commission of 2%. However, there is no making charges or wastage. GST as usual is applicable at 3%, and the purchase can be made by online payment by using any UPI apps or your credit card. The risk in digital gold is that digital gold is not highly regulated. So there is it involves a risk of regulatory oversight. Okay, so the regulations are not very stringent. So a regulatory oversight risk is involved. There is no lock-in period, and the liquidity is high because you can purchase and sell on your smartphone. So the liquidity is very high in digital gold, and there is absolutely no lock-in period. You can purchase and sell within a minute as well. There is no return for the duration of holding other than capital appreciation. So when you purchase and sell, whatever the capital appreciation happens, that is your returns. Again, just like physical gold, when you sell digital gold, short-term capital gain or long-term capital gain will be applied as depending on your period of holding. Next, we come to sovereign gold bonds. Sovereign gold bonds are government securities denominated in grams of gold. This is government-backed government securities denominated in grams of gold. It can't be purchased freely. You can purchase it only when it is issued periodically by the RBI on behalf of the Government of India. The investment limit, the minimum investment limit in SGB is 1 gram of gold, whereas the maximum is 4 kgs for individuals and HUF and 20 kgs for trust. The purchase cost involves cost of gold and no other cost. And GST is also not applicable. So SGBs can be purchased through banks, post offices, SHCIL or authorized stock exchanges through either DMAT or physical route. Now, it doesn't have any major risk as such because it is online, so there is no risk of theft, and it is backed by government. So there is no risk like which was there in digital gold, which was the regulatory oversight risk. The only risk is if the sovereign only defaults. Then, if the government only defaults, then definitely there is a risk, but that is a very, very, very minute risk. Okay. It has a lock-in period though of 8 years. However, there is an option for redeeming after 5 years. And the liquidity is comparatively lesser than digital gold because the lock-in period is involved. Because in digital gold, as I said, you can purchase and sell even within a minute. But in SGB, there is a lock-in period. So the liquidity is not that great. However, there are good returns. SGB can earn a return of 2.5% per annum, which is dispersed semi-annually or half-yearly. And the taxability is in this way that the interest, what you earn, this 2.5%, that is taxable at slab rates. However, if you hold the SGBs till their maturity and then you redeem, then the capital gains are exempt. Next, we come to gold ETFs. So basically, gold ETFs are exchange traded funds that target to track the domestic price of physical gold, and they invest in gold bullion. Basically now, as far as the purchase and tradability is concerned, gold ETFs can be purchased and tradable on stock exchanges similar to any other equity-based funds. And the minimum investment is 1 unit of the traded fund, which is 1 gram of gold, whereas there is no bar on the maximum limit. The cost of purchase will include the cost of gold plus around 1% of expense ratio. Again, GST is not applicable, and there is no lock-in period, which is why the liquidity is really high, because there is no lock-in period and there is no return on this investment for the period of holding except for capital appreciation. When you sell this, the short-term capital gains as well as or long-term capital gains will apply depending on your period of holding. Next is gold mutual funds. So basically, gold mutual funds are mutual funds that directly or indirectly invest in gold reserves. These are open-ended investments based on units provided by the gold ETFs. Now, as far as purchase and tradability is concerned, gold mutual funds can be purchased from mutual fund houses and distributors. And the minimum investment is 100 rupees, whereas there is no bar on the maximum investment limit. The purchase cost involves the cost of gold plus around 1% of an expense ratio. GST again is not applicable. There is no lock-in period, again due to which the liquidity is very high. There is no return for the time you hold the investment except for capital appreciation. And when you sell these mutual funds, short-term capital gains or long-term capital gains will apply as per your period of holding. So we discussed all the avenues how you can invest in gold. Now we come to the crucial question, which is how much gold can you own in India? So technically and legally, there is no limit as such up to which a person can own gold in India, if you have appropriate income proof to substantiate the same. So basically, if you have a whole lot of, say I have 100 kg of gold and I just say that this is my grandmother's, nobody will believe. You have to have substantiate that with some sort of a appropriate proof. Then if you have appropriate income proof or maybe some inheritance proof, then technically and legally there is no limit up to which a person can own gold in India. However, there are certain specified limits within which if you have gold, you won't be asked to substantiate the same with any proof. Those limits are 500 grams for married women, 250 grams for unmarried women, and 100 grams for men, irrespective of their marital status. So if you're a married woman, you can hold up to 500 grams of gold without being asked to substantiate the proof for holding the same. If you're unmarried, if you're an unmarried woman, you can still hold 250 grams of gold without being asked to substantiate proofs for the same. And if you're a man, irrespective of you're married or not, you can have up to 100 grams of gold without being asked to substantiate any income proofs for the same. So what all comes within this limit of 500 gram, 250 gram and 100 gram is that it includes gold jewelry and ornaments, but it excludes gold coins and bars. So what does this mean? If you keep gold coins and bars even within the specified limits, still you should have the appropriate necessary income proof documents to substantiate the same. So I've tried to, as much as possible, cover everything in respect of what happened in the budget in relation to gold and silver, what is the demand for gold and silver as an investment, and how to invest in gold and silver, as well as how much of a gold you can own in India. If you have liked this video, please comment gold in the comments. Let us see how many of you comment that. And if you feel that this video was useful, please like the video and share it with your friends, especially those who might be getting married very soon, especially. And because the gold prices now have come down, so they can invest in gold now. They can purchase all their jewelry, etc. Also subscribe to our channel and share this channel with all your other friends. Thank you very much for viewing till here. I'll come up with more interesting videos. Till then, take care. Goodbye.